Okay, so right now we're going to talk about the magic wand and the quick selection tool. Both the magic wand and the quick selection tool are found right here. It is the fourth icon on our toolbox from the left. If I move my mouse on top of the magic wand, it will tell me that the shortcut is W. If I hold my mouse down, you will notice that I have the quick selection tool and the magic wand. They both share that W shortcut. In order to navigate between both of them, we're going to do a Shift W. Shift W. And also notice that when I do that, go between a magic wand and quick selection tool, that our option changes depending on the tool that I'm in. So for example, if I go from the quick selection tool right here to Shift W with the magic wand, notice how our options change. Alright, so we're going to start with the magic wand. Like the marquee selection tool and the lasso tool, you will notice that we have our selection options right here, right? Again, we can hold the Shift key to add a selection, and we can hold the Alt key or Option key on a Mac to subtract a selection. And for the intersect, there is no shortcut, so we have to select our intersection right here. So the way that the magic wand works, if you guys look at this layer right here, I'm going to turn off the background layer. Notice that I have this image of this futuristic bike on a white background. If I was to select the white background with the magic wand, notice that my selection goes all the way around the bike, sampling that white color. However, in order to go inside of the wheels or between the forks or underneath the rear wheel right here, we would have to add those selections. If I hit Q for quick mask, and please do check out our quick mask videos, you will notice that everything that's pink, our selection, is what we were able to do with one single click of our magic wand. Now, if I want to add the additional white areas, I would have to hold the Shift key, and notice how our selection button is selected when I hold the Shift key. And what I'm going to do is go to those areas that I want to select and add them to my selection. Alright, I can double check by hitting Q for quick mask, and I will notice that this area right here was not selected. So I'm going to get out a quick mask and add this selection. Alright, so again, anything to do with selection, we will go to the selection menu, select, and I will deselect to deselect my selection. To the right of our selection options, we have what's called a sample size. We have point size as default, and then we have 3x3, 5x5, 11x11, and on and on. What this means that if I have point size and I select on an area, it will sample that point that I've selected, and depending on my tolerance, which is the next thing that we're going to talk about, it will expand the selection. If I sample a bigger size, right, then it will take an average of a specific dimension. So for example, if I go 31 by 31, it'll be 31 pixels by 31 pixels. It will select that average. Now, tolerance has to do with how much and how little of something is selected. By default, we have 32. If I go to a selection of 1 and I switch my sample size to point size and I click right here, when I zoom in, notice that Photoshop's magic wand has selected an area which contrasts with the adjacent areas is that of 1 pixel in tonal difference. If I zoom out, deselect, and switch my selection to 32, which is the average, notice how much of this area has been selected. Again, if I zoom in, you will notice that it had stopped at a point where the difference in tonality is that of 32 in value. Now, if I increase my tolerance to the maximum of 255 and I select in the same area as before, notice that my selection has gone everywhere. right? So if I hit Q, you can see everything that's pink has been selected. So be aware that you can control the tolerance of your selections right here. So I tend to leave everything to the default of 32. It always works fine. To the right of that, we have anti-alias, which should always be selected, Contiguous, sample all files, and then we have the refine edge. The refine edge has its own tutorial in our channel, so please do check out the tutorial for refine edges, because it's a edge refinement tool that is shared by the marquee selection tool, the lasso tools, and the magic wand tools. So I'm going to deselect again by going to select, deselect, and we're going to explore what continuous means. I'm going to open another example. Notice that right here I have a layer where I have black and white squares. If I have contiguous selected on this black square, my selection will end at the point where Photoshop cannot tell the difference between the next value right here. But if I want to have Photoshop select everything that's black in this image, I would deselect contiguous. And now when I click on one of the black squares, all the black squares have been selected. If I hit Q for quick mask, notice that everything that's this maroon color, it's my selection. Again, if I go to my bicycle example, notice that if I want to select this specific green and I have contiguous deselected and I click, everything that's that specific green will be selected no matter what separates it in between. If I have contiguous selected and I click on it, it will search for that green up to a point that it cannot go past to. So this dark area of our drawing prevents the magic wand from jumping into another area and search. But if I have contiguous deselected and I click on that green, it would search the entire image for that specific green. Now, the next tool we're going to cover is the quick selection tool. The quick selection tool, it's like a magic wand that acts like a paintbrush. So for example, if I click and drag around my bicycle, notice that it creates a selection that searches the area based on the size of your brush. And as soon as I drag it around this white area, I will start selecting depending on the movement of my brush. Once I have the selection done all the way around my object, I can add by selecting the quick selection tool plus, and I can add different parts to it. Or I can subtract by selecting the quick selection tool with the minus icon. I'm not a big fan of this tool right here because I cannot control the tolerance. And again, I can sample multiple layers and I can use the refine edge tool, which is the same tool that we found in our marquee and lasso tools. So this is the magic wand and the quick selection tool.